Wyoming Territory, 1887. In a snow-choked ravine outside Dusty Ford, Rosa Delgado ran for her life as Luther Briggs thundered after her, his rope snapping past her cheek like the breath of death itself. She slipped on the icy ground, hands scraping raw against frozen rock, while his boots and ragged laughter closed in like a noose tightening around her ribs. "Ain't nobody wants you," Luther snarled, cocking his revolver. "You bring fire wherever you crawl." Rosa forced herself upright, lungs ripping for air. The only thought screaming in her mind was, "If I die here, no one will remember my family ever lived." And in that split second, she had to choose: leap into the ravine or turn and face the monster on horseback. Before we continue, if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, drop your city name in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Rosa Delgado woke to pain before she woke to light. For a few long heartbeats, she didn't remember a name, or a town, or a road. All she knew was the deep, bruised ache along her ribs and the way her throat burned like she'd swallowed smoke. Her fingers clenched on instinct around something small and hard in her palm. The metal bit into her skin. The watch. Memory rushed her all at once. Luther's breath hot with whiskey, his hand in her hair, the roar of men laughing when she stumbled in the dust, someone shouting, someone else cheering him on like this was sport. Vultures in boots. She jerked, sucking in a sharp breath, wild-eyed and ready to claw her way free. But she wasn't on the ground anymore. She was in a narrow bed, under a thin but clean blanket. A single window let in a line of pale morning, cutting across a rough wooden floor and a plain dresser. The room was small, bare, quiet. Too quiet. Rosa pushed herself up fast, then bit down on a cry when her ribs screamed. The world tilted. She caught herself on the headboard, panting, eyes burning. "Easy." The voice came from the doorway, low, steady, not slurred. Rosa snapped her head that way, every muscle going tight. A man filled the frame, tall and broad-shouldered, skin dark as coffee left on the stove, hair pulled back at his nape. He held a chipped bowl that steamed in the cold air. He wasn't Luther. That was the first thing. He also wasn't looking at her the way Luther had. He kept his gaze high, face, throat, nowhere lower. He didn't step in, didn't grin, didn't lick his lips and measure what she was worth. "Where am I?" Her voice came out raw, more breath than sound. "Highwind Ranch." He spoke like he'd said the name 1,000 times and never decided how he felt about it. "Couple miles west of Dusty Ford." Dusty Ford. She knew the town, knew the way folks there crossed themselves when she walked by, like misfortune might rub off. Knew the way rumors traveled faster than horses. Her grip on the pocket watch tightened. The case bit deeper into her palm, the burn-scarred metal a familiar anchor. She didn't dare look down at it. If she did, she'd see the 2 pine trees etched into the back and the curve of a stream, and her mind would drag her all the way back to a different fire. "Who are you?" she asked. "Name's Jay Carter." He shifted his weight, the floorboard beneath him creaking in a tired way. I found you last night on the road in. You were on the wrong end of Luther Briggs's temper. Luther. The name alone made her stomach clench. He was going to do worse than bruise you, Jay added quietly. Didn't seem right to leave you there. Rosa laughed once, a small, broken sound that surprised even her. Doesn't seem to bother most folks. Maybe I ain't most folks. He nodded at her hand. You're bleeding yourself with that thing. She glanced down. Her knuckles were white around the watch, fingernails pressing deep. A small smear of red marked the edge where metal met skin. She forced her fingers to relax, just enough. She couldn't remember the last time someone pointed out she was hurting herself. What do you want? She asked. It came out sharper than she intended. Fear always made her voice mean. Nothing, he said. You don't owe me. He stepped just far enough into the room to set the bowl on the little table by the bed. Soup. Ain't much, but it's warm. You can eat or not. You can stay till you can stand without seeing stars. Or you can walk out that door right now. Either way, I ain't putting hands on you. No one talked like that where she came from. Men offered help like a hook, not a choice. She scanned the room again, searching for signs of a trap. No ropes, no bottles, no other boots by the door. Just his hat on a peg, a folded quilt on the chair, and that bowl of soup sending up thin curls of steam. Her body wanted the warmth. Her stomach, hollow for longer than she liked to count, twisted hard. Why? She whispered. Why what? Why bring me here? You could have ridden right past. He hesitated, then shrugged one shoulder. You looked like somebody already rode past too many times. His jaw flexed. Besides, Luther's the kind of drunk gets braver with an audience. He don't need encouragement. He said Luther's name like he knew it well, like he'd seen what that man could do. Rosa's chest tightened. You know him. Long enough to know I don't want him on my land. Jay's eyes met hers, steady. He'll come sniffing around when he sobers up. Men like that hate losing anything they think belongs to 'em. Her heart stuttered. Belongs to 'em. She felt the ghosts of fingers around her wrists, the echo of a voice in her ear. You ain't going nowhere, Rosa. You're mine till I'm done. If he comes, she managed, you can just hand me back. No trouble on your head. For a second, something flashed across Jay's face. Anger, maybe. Not at her, at the idea. You ain't freight, he said. I don't hand people over. Her eyes stung. Nobody had ever argued with that out loud before. He stepped back toward the door, giving her space. You rest. Soup will be there if you want it. He laid his hand on the frame, then added, quieter. And the door stays open till you tell me otherwise. You want to leave, you walk. You want to close it, you close it. Your say. Then he turned and walked away down the hall, boots thudding slow, leaving the door just ajar like he'd promised. Rosa sat there, shaking. She looked at the door, at the soup, at the watch in her hand. Run. The part of her that had survived this long whispered, "Don't trust anybody. Don't stay where they can trap you." Another part, smaller but stubborn, spoke up too. "You can't even stand without your head spinning. You're tired, Rosa. So damn tired." She swallowed hard. The smell of broth wrapped around her like a memory she'd never had. Someone cooking because they wanted her fed, not quiet. Rosa loosened her grip on the watch, just a little, and set it in her lap. Then, with a wince, she reached for the bowl, brought the edge to her lips, and tasted warmth for the first time in a long, long while. The door waited, open. So did the world outside. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure if she wanted to walk through it alone. Rosa had barely swallowed her second sip when a soft shuffle of small boots scuffed outside the door. She froze. The bowl paused halfway to her lips. Her fingers tightened again, as if the watch in her lap could shield her from whatever came next. A tiny head popped around the frame. Big brown eyes, freckles, a mop of hair sticking in all directions like he'd fought sleep and lost. The boy couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. "Oh," he whispered. "You're awake." Rosa blinked at him, unsure what to do with something so harmless. The boy stepped inside only halfway, one foot still planted in the hall, like he needed an escape route. He held a small plate in both hands, balancing it carefully. On it was a crooked piece of cornbread, edges burnt crisp. "I made it," he said proudly. "Well, I tried. Jay says bread ain't supposed to smoke, but I like it crunchy." Rosa stared. He edged closer, just enough to set the plate on the table beside the soup. "You can have mine, if you're scared. I get scared in new places, too." Those words cracked something in her chest. Clean, simple tenderness that didn't demand anything back. Her throat tightened again, but this time from something gentler, something unfamiliar. "Thank you," she whispered. The boy beamed. "I'm Noah. Jay's my uncle. He's real grumpy in the morning, but he makes good soup when he's trying not to look worried." Noah. She tried the name out loud, and it felt like saying something safe. He nodded, then pointed at the blanket. "Jay says you were hurt bad. Says you're strong for waking up this early. Says you kicked Luther in the shin before he grabbed you. That true?" Heat rose to her face. "I tried." "Well," he said matter-of-factly, "he deserved it. Jay don't like Luther. I don't either. He smells like the saloon floor." Despite everything, a tiny laugh escaped her. She startled at the sound. It had been so long since that noise came from her, it felt foreign. Noah grinned, proud of himself. "See? Better already." A deeper voice called from down the hall, not quite a bark, but firm. "Noah." Noah rolled his eyes. "Told you. Grumpy." Then louder, "She's awake!" Jay appeared moments later, filling the doorway again like a shadow but not a threat. His brows pulled together, not in anger but concern. "Noah," he said, arms crossed. What did I tell you about letting folks rest? I did let her. She woke up on her own. Noah kicked the floor, and she was scared. I brought her bread. Bread helps. Jay scrubbed a hand over his jaw, looking almost embarrassed. Boy, you can't just... Rosa shook her head. He wasn't bothering me. Both Carters froze like she'd dropped a gun on the floor. Jay's gaze flicked from Rosa to his nephew and back, like he wasn't sure which situation needed handling first. Still, he muttered, softer now. Give folks space. Noah, not everybody wants company first thing. I wasn't company, Noah argued. I was help. Rosa felt something warm stir inside her, soft as a blanket across bruises. He was, she said quietly. Jay let out a breath. Relief mixed with something heavier, something that made his eyes tighten at the corners. Guilt, maybe. Or fear he might have pushed her too hard just by stepping close. I'll get water, he said finally. For you to wash up. Then I'll let you rest. He turned to leave, but Noah plopped down right in the doorway, crossing his legs like a stubborn puppy. What are you doing? Jay frowned. Garden, Noah declared. So nobody else comes by to scare her. Jay's voice dropped low. Noah, I'm fine, Rosa said quickly. Because Noah wasn't scaring her. Because his presence, small, open-hearted, was something her bones needed more than she realized. Jay hesitated again, caught between rules and the truth staring him in the face. Finally, he sighed. Just don't block the whole damn doorway. Noah scooted 2 inches to the side. Better? No, Jay said, but it'll do. He left, footsteps fading toward the kitchen. Noah leaned back against the doorframe, humming something tuneless, legs swinging. Jay says you can stay till you feel better. Or longer, if you want. Or shorter. He doesn't know which is polite, so he said all of them. Rosa's eyes stung. She set the bowl down before she dropped it. Noah kept talking, completely unaware of the storm he'd kicked up inside her. Sometimes folks come here looking for work or a warm place, but most don't stay. Jay says people like us gotta stick to ourselves, but I think he's wrong. I think sometimes people show up 'cause they're supposed to. Rosa couldn't look at him. Couldn't look at the watch either. Everything hurt too much in too many places. But she found her voice. Why did you really come in here, Noah? He thought about it, then shrugged. Because you looked like somebody who needed someone to sit by the door. Something inside Rosa, something long frozen, slipped, cracked, and thawed just a little. She reached out, barely brushing his sleeve with 2 fingertips. Thank you, she said again. This time she meant it deeper. Noah grinned, proud as a rooster, and settled in like he planned to guard that doorway forever. And for the first time in years, Rosa didn't feel entirely alone with the world pressing in from every side. Rosa managed to stand on her own the next morning, though the room tilted like a wagon wheel missing a spoke. She braced a hand on the wall, breath catching until the dizziness eased. Every part of her body protested, but something in her, thin, stubborn, flickering like a match in wind, told her she needed to try. She couldn't hide in that room forever. Couldn't let a man she barely knew see her as helpless. Couldn't let Noah think she was something to guard forever. Rosa Delgado had been running for years, but she had never been weak. Not in front of anyone. She shuffled toward the kitchen, each step a small victory, hand still wrapped tight around the pocket watch. The smell of something warm, eggs, bread, met her halfway down the hall. Her stomach twisted so sharply in hunger she had to pause. Jay looked up the second she appeared in the doorway. He stood by the stove, sleeves rolled, frying pan in one hand, spatula in the other. Sunlight slid across his shoulders, across the muscles in his forearms, and Rosa hated how safe that image made her feel. He didn't rush her, didn't act surprised. He simply set the pan aside, wiped his hands on a towel, and stepped back from the table. "Sit," he said gently. "If you fall, I'd rather it be onto a chair than the floor." Rosa huffed a small breath. It wasn't quite a laugh, but it wanted to be. She took careful, testing steps until she reached the table. Jay pulled a chair out and immediately stepped away, giving her a wide arc of space. That mattered. More than she wanted it to. Noah darted in from outside a moment later, hair windblown, face bright. "Told you she'd make it to breakfast," he announced, triumph sparkling in his voice. "Jay owes me a penny." "I don't owe you a damn thing," Jay said, but there was no heat to it. "Wash your hands." Noah groaned dramatically, but obeyed, scrubbing at the basin while humming some tune with no rhythm whatsoever. Rosa settled carefully into her seat. The table was plain, scratched by years of use, but someone had patched the wood with care. A jar of salt, a stack of tin plates, a chipped mug. It was nothing special, yet it felt like more home than she'd had in a long time. Jay set a plate in front of her. Eggs, fried potatoes, a piece of that burnt cornbread Noah was so proud of. Simple, but warm. Real. She murmured, "Thank you." He nodded once, eyes flicking toward the watch still clutched in her hand. "You can eat with your other hand, you know." Her fingers tightened instinctively. "I don't let go of it often." "You don't have to," he said. "Just don't bleed yourself." He moved away to serve Noah, who bounded to the table with enough energy for 10 children. The boy sat beside her, close but not crowding, legs swinging. "Jay says you might help out once you're better," Noah said through a mouthful of potatoes. "If you wanna. Not 'cause you owe nothin', just 'cause we're kinda short-handed." Jay gave the boy a look, but Rosa's attention had drifted downward. The pocket watch was scarred with heat, its metal warped slightly. She brushed her thumb over the etched pine trees on the back, tracing the familiar grooves. A stream. A memory. A fire. Jay was watching her now, though he tried to hide it by tending the stove. But when she shifted the watch toward the light, the engraved trees caught his eye. His shoulders went rigid, his jaw clenched. For one raw second, something hollowed out in his expression. Recognition, fear, guilt. She couldn't tell. Then he turned away too quickly, Noah didn't notice any of it. "Where'd you get that?" he asked. "Looks like it's been in a fire." Rosa swallowed. "It has." "You find it in the wagon train?" the boy continued. "The one folks said burned up in the pass?" She nodded once, very slowly. "Does it still work?" "I don't wind it," she said. "It's the last thing I have from before." Noah grew quiet at that. "Oh." Jay didn't speak. He didn't look at her. But his hand slipped on the stove handle, knuckles whitening for just a moment before he mastered himself. Rosa noticed. She noticed everything. She took a bite of the eggs to break the tension. Warmth spread down her throat, easing something deep inside that had been locked tight for months, maybe years. Noah brightened again. "See? Breakfast helps everything, even Jay's bad mornings." Jay shot him a glare that was mostly affection. "Finish eating." Rosa found herself smiling. Just barely. Just enough. She wasn't safe. She wasn't healed. She wasn't sure of anything. Not this ranch. Not this man. Not this small sliver of peace she'd stumbled into. But for the first time in a long while, the world didn't feel like it was pressing her face into the dirt. For now, there was a chair under her, a warm plate in front of her, and two people who didn't look at her like she was a burden or a curse. Maybe that alone was enough to breathe for another day. Maybe, just maybe, it was a beginning. Rosa wasn't ready for town. Not really. Her ribs still ached. Her nerves still jumped at every noise, and her mind kept replaying Luther's voice in the dark. But Jay insisted they needed supplies, and she insisted she could walk. It left them at a stalemate until Noah yelled from the porch, "We're going to town, right? I already brushed the horse." Jay sighed. Rosa almost laughed. So they went. Dusty Ford lay just a few miles from Highwind Ranch. But to Rosa, the ride felt like crossing into another life she wasn't sure she wanted. She kept her shoulders tight, chin low, eyes scanning every stranger as if Luther might be hiding behind any pair of boots. Jay rode beside her, straight-backed, slow and steady. He didn't say much, but he kept Noah between them, a small protective triangle she didn't quite understand, yet felt anyway. They hit town mid-morning. Dusty Ford wasn't large, just a main street lined with weathered storefronts and too many eyes that looked too long. A saloon, a smithy, a general store with faded yellow paint. People paused their work to watch the three of them ride in. Rosa hated how her skin prickled under their stares. Jay dismounted first. "Stay close," he murmured. Not a command, not a warning, just a fact of survival. Inside the general store, the air went heavy the moment they stepped through the door. Mrs. Thompson, the shop owner, looked Rosa up and down like she was examining a stain on her counter. "Well," she drawled, "if it ain't Jay Carter bringing in strays now." Rosa froze. Heat crawled up her neck. Jay ignored the jab. "Salt, flour, and rifle rounds," he said calmly, "and 2 yards of cotton cloth, Mrs. Thompson leaned forward, squinting at Rosa. You from that wagon train that burned? Folks say someone brought bad luck on it. Folks say a girl ran from the flames. Rosa's throat closed. Before she could force a word out, some ranch hands near the shelves snickered. Looks like she dragged the fire right with her, one said. Careful, Carter, another added. Your barn might be next. Noah bristled. She ain't done nothing wrong. Jay placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, nudging him gently aside before he stepped forward, body angled between Rosa and every stranger in the room. Enough, he said, voice low but carrying. She's with me. That's all you need to know. Silence rippled through the store. Mrs. Thompson raised a brow. With you, huh? Jay didn't blink. A guest at Highwind Ranch. The room seemed to shift, the air thickening with a particular kind of judgment Rosa recognized from 100 nights sleeping in the shadows of places she wasn't wanted. Then the sheriff walked in. Sheriff Doyle filled the doorway like trouble wearing a badge. His gaze slid from Jay to Rosa, slow and cold, lingering too long on the bruises along her jaw. Well, well, he muttered. Carter's brought home something new. Jay's shoulders stiffened. Sheriff? Doyle tipped his hat lazily. You sure you know what you're taking in? Folks talk. Says that girl brings trouble. Says she's cursed. Rosa's stomach plummeted. Jay stepped closer to her, not touching, but close enough she felt the wall of him. She's a person, he said evenly, and she's under my roof. Anyone got an issue with that can talk to me outside. Mrs. Thompson snorted. World must be upside down if Jay Carter's taken in ghosts and fire starters. Jay ignored her again, gathering the supplies himself and placing coins on the counter. Noah tugged on Rosa's hand, whispering loudly, Don't listen to 'em. They're just mad Jay's braver than they are. Doyle watched them leave, arms folded, eyes narrowing with something Rosa didn't like, something calculating. Outside, the moment her boots hit the dirt, Rosa let out a shaky breath she'd been holding since the moment they entered. Jay noticed. You all right? No, she admitted softly. But thank you for what you said in there. He adjusted the reins on his horse, jaw tight but eyes gentle. People in towns like this, they see anything different and get loud about it. Doesn't mean they're right. Rosa stared at him, the words sinking into places she didn't realize needed them. You didn't have to speak up, she said. Yes, Jay replied quietly. I did. The sun hit his face just right then, warm, steady, unflinching. She had never seen someone defend her like that. Not publicly. Not without wanting payment. Not with the whole town watching. It made something small and frightened inside her stretch, like a frozen hand reaching for heat. And it terrified her, because kindness like that never came free. Rosa mounted her horse and kept her gaze forward as they left town, but she knew Jay saw the truth anyway. She wasn't running from the town. She was running from the unfamiliar feeling that someone had finally taken her side. For one fragile moment, it felt like a shield she'd never had before. And shields were dangerous things, because once you learned what protection felt like, losing it could break you all over again. Luther Briggs woke with a hangover and a split lip, neither of which bothered him half as much as the man waiting for him. Bartholomew Kane sat behind his polished desk on the second floor of the dusty Ford Bank, looking like he owned the whole damn territory, which in some ways he did. His boots were spotless, his vest pressed, his mustache sharp as a blade. A man who never lifted a finger unless it was to point someone else toward the work or the grave. Luther stumbled in, hat crushed in one hand. "Boss, I was gonna get her." Kane slammed a stack of papers on the desk so hard Luther jumped. "You let her escape," Kane hissed. "You let Jay Carter get between you and your job, and you let half this town see you drunk off your boots." Luther flinched. He hated being yelled at, but he hated the cold quiet the most, the kind Kane used now. "You know what winter does to Dusty Ford, Briggs? It bites, it starves, and people get mean when they're hungry. The only thing that keeps this place from eating itself alive is my money." Kane leaned back. "So when I pay for a problem to disappear, I expect it to stay disappeared." Luther swallowed thickly. "I'll get her back. She ain't going nowhere with her busted ribs." Kane's smile chilled the room. "She's already somewhere. She's under Carter's roof, and Carter, unfortunately, is harder to break than you." Luther bristled. "He ain't better'n me." "Aren't you adorable?" Kane murmured. "Of course he is." Luther's face twisted with humiliation. Kane rose, pacing toward the window overlooking the street. "You remember Delgado Ranch?" The name hit Luther like a slap. His grip tightened on his hat. "Yeah," he muttered. "Fire got out of hand." Kane's voice dropped to a razor whisper. "I paid you to scare that family, not burn the whole place to ash. But accidents happen, and the paperwork I wanted never surfaced." He turned, eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Until now." A cold shiver crawled up Luther's spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Kane answered slowly, "that little girl you chased into the dark grew up, and she's holding something she shouldn't. Something worth more than this whole town." He tapped his vest pocket. "She's got Delgado's land rights, forest contracts, mining access, everything her parents died protecting." Luther frowned. "How do you know?" Kane smirked. "Because I've been waiting years for that watch of hers to resurface. Delgado hid the deed inside it. Only a fool would think a trinket survived a fire for sentimental value." Luther felt heat rise behind his ears. Anger, fear, the desperate need to prove he wasn't worthless. "So we just take it back, right?" "Easy." Kane chuckled. "If it were easy, I wouldn't need you." The bank door opened. Sheriff Doyle entered, pretending confidence he didn't have. Kane tossed him a thick envelope. "You'll help Mr. Briggs finish the job," Kane said. "Tell the town Carter's harboring a fugitive. Push for his ranch to be seized. And when Carter's desperate enough, he'll give up the girl to save his land." Doyle hesitated. "Bartholomew, Carter's a decent man. Folks respect." Kane's stare cut the sentence in half. "Respect doesn't pay your salary, Sheriff, nor does it feed this town." Doyle pocketed the envelope, jaw tight. "Fine." And Sheriff? Kane added lightly. If Highwind Ranch happens to catch fire like Delgado's did, well, these things happen. Luther grinned a bitter, crooked grin. Fire, he understood. Kane motioned them both closer. Burn Carter's livelihood. Burn his hope. Burn whatever it takes. Because as long as that girl is alive, she is proof of what I did. And I do not tolerate witnesses. Luther stepped out of Kane's office with a swagger he didn't feel. Doyle paused on the stairs, sweating through his shirt. You sure about this? He muttered. Luther snorted. Winter's comin'. You saw the store shelves. Folks'll side with whoever fills their stomachs. And Carter's a fool for taking her in. Doyle didn't answer. He just stared at the dust drifting through the open door, looking like a man who wanted to outrun his own badge. Behind them, Kane closed his curtains, sealing in the warmth of the bank. He smoothed his vest, adjusting the gold chain of his pocket watch. Bring me the girl, he whispered to no one, and bring me the damn deed she's carrying. Outside, a cold wind rolled through Dusty Ford, a wind that felt like trouble riding in from every direction. And Highwind Ranch, sitting quiet under the morning sun, had no idea the storm had already been paid for. Rosa needed air, needed distance, needed a place where the walls didn't feel like they were closing in around her ribs. Highwind Ranch was kind, safer than anything she'd known lately. But safety could feel like a trap, too, when you weren't used to it. So she walked, slowly, carefully, past the corral, past the woodpile, toward the line of pines where the land sloped down toward the old logging trail. The cold breeze stung her cheeks, but the quiet steadied her. Here, at least, she could breathe. She held the pocket watch in her palm, thumb tracing the warped metal. She didn't open it this time. Didn't dare. Memories had teeth, and she already felt them pressing too close to her throat. Maybe she should run again. Maybe she should... A voice snapped through the trees. She froze. Telling you, Kane wants it done quiet this time. A man growled, low and angry. Luther. She'd know that voice anywhere. The man who chased her through the dark. The man who laughed while she begged. Rosa dropped into a crouch, breath catching. She eased behind a fallen log, heart thudding so loud she feared they'd hear it. A second man answered nervously. Carter's trouble, Luther. Man don't scare easy. Luther spat. Carter ain't half the legend folks make him. I rode with him once, remember? Back when Kane had us torching places to send a message. Torching places. Rosa's fingers clenched around the watch. Luther laughed harshly. You remember that fire at the Delgado place? Carter was there. Soon as the order came, he turned tail, rode off like a dog with its tail tucked, left us to finish the job. Rosa felt the ground tilt. No, that couldn't... Luther kept talking, oblivious to the way his words were ripping her open. Girl don't know it was him. Don't even know he took something from the ashes, some keepsake. Maybe that's why he's protecting her. Guilt's a funny thing. Her lungs squeezed tight. The watch in her palm suddenly weighed 10 times heavier. A shadowy memory flashed. her younger self coughing through smoke, clinging to her mother's shawl, seeing a dark figure on horseback pause in the flames. She'd always told herself she imagined it, that no one had been there. But the trees, the stream, the watch's engraving, and now Luther's voice. Jay Carter. Jay had been there. Her breath shattered. She stumbled back, boots crunching on a twig. The men went silent. "What was that?" Luther barked. Rosa didn't wait. She ran, pain lancing through her ribs, air burning her throat. But she ran. Branches whipped her arms, the world spinning, her mind screaming the same words over and over. He lied. He lied. He knew. Highwind Ranch came into view. Jay was near the corral, working a saddle strap, head bent. He looked up when he heard her, really heard her, because she crashed through the yard like someone fleeing death. He dropped the strap instantly. "Rosa, what happened?" She stopped several feet away, trembling, the pocket watch held like a weapon or a wound. Her voice cracked, raw and sharp. "Tell me the truth," she whispered. "Were you there?" Jay went still, entirely still, as if someone had pinned him to the earth. Rosa's breath hitched. "The night my parents died. The night our ranch burned. Were you there?" Jay's jaw tightened. He didn't look away. Didn't try to pretend he didn't understand. The silence was the answer she feared. Her knees weakened. You turned your horse. You left us." Her voice broke into pieces. "God, Jay, how could you?" Jay took a single step forward, pained and slow. "Rosa, listen." "No!" she cried, stumbling back. "Don't you dare come near me!" Noah, hearing the shouting, ran out from the porch. "What's going on? Why's Rosa crying?" Rosa swiped her tears away, furious at herself for showing them, furious at him for causing them, furious at the world for letting this be true. Jay rubbed a hand over his face, shame hollowing his eyes. "Rosa, don't," she whispered. "Don't say my name like you have the right." The wind carried the smell of pine and smoke, the same smoke she remembered too well. And suddenly, even standing here, she felt the flames licking at her heels again. Jay tried once more, voice rough. "Let me explain." "There is nothing you can say," she choked, "that changes what you did." Noah looked between them, lost. "Jay?" Jay's shoulders sagged. "Go inside, kid." "No," Rosa whispered, voice cracking. "Let him stay. Let him hear the truth for once." But Jay shook his head, eyes shining with something close to torment. "Please, don't do this in front of him." She stared at him, this man who gave her soup, who made space for her at his table, who defended her in town. And all she could see now was the shadow of a rider turning his horse away while her world burned. Her voice dropped to a whisper so sharp it cut. "I trusted you." Jay flinched as if the words were a knife. Behind them the wind shifted, and from somewhere past the barn, smoke curled upward, a thin gray line sliding into the sky. Noah gasped. "Jay, the woodshed." Jay whipped around. Flames cracked. Heat surged. Luther had struck again. Jay grabbed Noah's arm. Rosa's instincts surged despite the pain. There would be time for truth later. Time for anger, betrayal, all the questions that had teeth. But right now, fire was coming. Again. And none of them were ready for how much damage this blaze would do, not to the ranch, but to the fragile, breaking thing between them. Smoke climbed fast, too fast. Jay yanked Noah behind him and sprinted for the sheds, Rosa limping after them despite every bone in her body, warning her to keep distance, to stay angry, to stay away. But fire had a way of dragging the truth out of people, dragging choices out of them too. The closer they got, the hotter the air grew. Flames licked up the side of the woodshed, devouring the winter stores. The crackling roar sounded too familiar, too much like that night long ago. Rosa's whole body trembled. Jay shoved a bucket into Noah's hands. "Stay behind me and throw water when I say. Don't you go near the flames." Noah nodded, pale and wide-eyed. Rosa grabbed another bucket, ignoring the stab in her ribs. Jay saw that, and something broke across his face, a grief, a guilt, a pleading she didn't understand yet. "Don't," he said hoarsely. "You're hurt." Rosa hurled the water anyway. "So are you." For several minutes there was nothing but buckets, shouting, and the heat punching their faces, but the flames had momentum. They'd been set with intention, oiled, fed, meant to spread. Jay cursed under his breath. Damn Luther. He knew exactly where to strike. Rosa felt dizziness hit her again. Noah was coughing hard, buried in smoke. "Jay!" she shouted. "Get him back! He can't breathe!" Jay turned, grabbed Noah by the collar, and pulled him away just in time, shielding the boy with his own body. Rosa watched the instinct in him, pure, fierce, immediate, and her heart twisted painfully. That man would dive into hell itself for this child. But had he ever dived into the fire for anyone else? The shed collapsed inward, sparks exploding into the air. Jay dragged Noah to the trough, forcing his face near the water. When he finally looked up at Rosa, he looked destroyed. She steadied herself against a fence post. "This is Cain," she rasped. "He's punishing you for helping me." Jay swallowed hard. "No, this is my fault. All of it." "Your fault?" Rosa spat. "Meaning what? Meaning you just happened to be within riding distance the night my whole family burned?" Jay dropped to one knee, wiping ash from Noah's face. His own hands shook. "Rosa," he said, voice breaking, "I need you to hear the truth." "No," she whispered. "I need you to answer me." Jay rose slowly, turning to fully face her. Smoke drifted around him like a veil. The orange light lit the despair in his eyes. "I was there," he said. Rosa staggered back like he'd struck her. Jay kept going, words pulled from him like a confession he'd been dying under for years. "Cain hired me back then. Hired a whole patrol. Told us the Delgados weren't paying dues. Told us to scare them into compliance. Said nobody'd get hurt." Rosa shook her head violently. "You expect me to believe that?" Jay's jaw clenched. "I was young, stupid, desperate. Noah's mama had just died. I didn't have coin to feed him. Cain knew that. Rosa's nails dug into her palms. So you chose money over my family's life. Jay flinched. No. I chose fear over everything. He took a small step closer, not enough to touch her, just enough to stand bare in front of her judgment. When I saw how the fire spread, how his men went wild, I grabbed Noah and ran. He choked on the rest. I didn't go back. Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper made of broken glass. You left us. Jay nodded once. The motion looked like it cost him blood. Yes. Say it, she demanded. Say what you did. Jay's voice cracked. I left your mother screaming behind me. I left your father fighting men I should have fought. I left a little girl crying in the smoke. I left you. Rosa's vision blurred. Her knees gave out, and she sank to the dirt. The truth wrapped around her chest like barbed wire. Jay stepped forward on instinct, reaching for her. Don't touch me, she cried. Jay froze mid-motion, chest collapsing. Rosa, I've lived with that night every damn day. I kept that watch because I couldn't forget. Because I didn't deserve to. She clutched the pocket watch so hard, the metal bit into her palm. You should have died before you turned that horse. You should have... A scream tore through the night. Jay! Noah's voice. Both of them whipped around. The second shed, the one near the lumber pile, had caught. Flames roared higher, and Noah stood too close, frozen in fear as the fire lunged toward the stack of dry timber. Jay launched forward without a second thought. Noah! He shouted. Rosa staggered up, adrenaline drowning her pain. She sprinted after Jay, grabbing Noah's arm and yanking him back just as a beam cracked and fell where he'd been standing. Jay caught both of them, dragging them toward open ground, shielding them with his entire body. The shed collapsed behind them, a rolling wave of heat and ash. Noah sobbed into Jay's chest. I didn't mean to. I didn't know it'd jump. Jay held him tighter. I got you, kid. I got you. Rosa stood a few feet away, trembling, soot streaking her cheeks. She stared at the man holding the child like he'd break the world for him. And all she could think was, this man had once turned away from her family's fire. But he had run into this one without hesitation. It didn't heal anything. But it confused everything. Behind them, the remains of the woodshed hissed and crackled. Another piece of Highwind Ranch burned down. Another piece of Rosa's heart burned hollow. The night didn't end with forgiveness. It ended with 3 people standing in smoke. One shaking with guilt, one shaking with grief, and one shaking with the terror of being caught between the two. And the fire at their backs was only the beginning. Dawn arrived bruised and gray, like the sky itself knew what had been lost. Highwind Ranch had always been modest, but now it looked wounded. Blackened beams, charred ground, smoke still curling from what used to be the winter woodpile. Rosa stood on the porch, wrapped in Noah's too big coat, watching Jay walk through the ruins like a son counting every failure he'd ever carried. He didn't look at her. She didn't call out to him. Silence sat heavy between them, thick as smoke. Noah hovered between them like a ghost, clutching a burned piece of timber as if the world might fall apart if he let go. Jay finally approached the porch, holding a crumpled envelope. "Kane sent this," he said. Rosa braced herself as Jay handed it over. She opened it with stiff fingers, eyes skimming the words. A debt notice, lies disguised as law, a threat dressed up as choice, payment due, property subject to seizure. Failure to comply will result in action by the territorial office. Rosa's stomach twisted. "He's blaming you for the fire." Jay nodded, jaw set tight. "Says we failed to maintain safe storage and that any further hazards put the ranch at risk of being reclaimed by the bank." "Kane's bank," she whispered. "Yeah. And reclaimed means stolen." Jay's eyes finally lifted to hers. They were hollow but steady. "He wants you. He wants that deed. Burnin' the ranch? Just the start." Noah's small voice trembled behind them. "Jay, we can't leave Highwind, right? We can fix it, can't we?" Jay knelt down, pulling Noah into his arms. "I don't know, kid." Rosa felt something hot rising in her chest. Fear, anger, grief for a place that wasn't even hers. "So what now? Run?" Her voice cracked. "That worked so well for both of us in the past." Jay didn't snap back, just wiped soot from Noah's cheek with a shaking thumb. "We can't stay. Not like this." "Then what?" she pressed. Jay hesitated, long enough for Rosa to realize he truly didn't know. "If we go to Dusty Ford," Rosa said slowly, "and we tell the truth." Jay let out a hollow laugh. "Truth ain't never been on my side, Rosa. But it's on mine." Her voice grew stronger, fueled by something that surprised even her. "I'm done hiding, done being hunted, done waiting for Kane to bury the last of my family under another pile of ashes." Jay stood, staring at her as if he'd never seen her fully until now. Rosa kept going. "He wants me dead. He wants you ruined. And he wants Noah scared into submission. If we stay quiet, we hand him everything." Jay looked away sharply, as if her words hit somewhere raw. Noah sniffled. "If we go to town, folks will yell at us again." Rosa crouched down to his height. "Then they'll hear us yell back." Noah blinked. "Really?" "Yes," she said gently. "We don't hide anymore." Jay rubbed a hand over his face. "Rosa, Kane owns half the town. Doyle does whatever he's told. You don't know what you're asking." She straightened, stepping close enough for Jay to feel the heat of her fury and her resolve. "I'm asking you to stop running," she said. "Just once." It was a knife wrapped in truth. Jay flinched, but he didn't turn away. "You want to tell the town what happened?" he asked. "Everything? Including what I did?" "I'll tell them exactly what you did," she said quietly. "And I'll tell them what Kane ordered, and what Luther keeps doing, and what Doyle lets happen." Jay stared at the ground. "And you think that'll fix something?" "No," she answered honestly. but it'll expose the men who think they can choke this land forever. And it'll give us a chance to breathe before they try again." Jay closed his eyes. His voice came out cracked. "And if they take work away from us? If they put Noah in danger? If they come after you harder?" Rosa swallowed, throat tight. "They already are." The wind carried the faint scent of ash and pine. Highwind Ranch groaned as the sun hit its broken wood. Jay opened his eyes, haunted, hurting, but fiercely alive. "Then we do it," he said finally. "We go to town." Rosa let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Jay turned to Noah. "Pack what you need. Only what's important." Noah immediately grabbed the scorched timber he'd been hugging. "This counts," he declared. Rosa almost smiled. Jay almost did too. As they saddled the horses, the ranch looked small but stubborn behind them, charred around the edges yet standing anyway. Like all three of them. Noah climbed up first. Rosa mounted slowly, wincing. Jay took the lead, reins tight in his hands, resolve settling into his shoulders. They didn't speak again as they crossed the ridge toward Dusty Ford. They didn't need to. Every hoofbeat said the same thing. This time, we face the fire together. The moment they crested the rise and Dusty Ford came into view, Rosa felt her pulse start to sprint. The town was too quiet, like a rattlesnake coiled under a porch. Noon sun beat down on the rooftops, but the air felt cold. Jay rode in first, shoulders squared, jaw set. Noah pressed close behind him in the saddle. Rosa followed, clutching the pocket watch through her coat, like a heartbeat she didn't trust. People noticed them immediately. Heads turned, whispers spread, doors opened, bootsteps shuffled. By the time they reached the main street, half the town had gathered, as if they'd been waiting. Sheriff Doyle stepped forward, badge glinting. "Jay Carter," he called. "You know why we're here." Jay didn't dismount. "Yeah," he said. "You're here to do Cain's bidding." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Doyle lifted a document, shaking it for everyone to see. "Highwind Ranch owes the bank more than it can pay. Carter can settle the debt by surrendering the fugitive he's harboring." The word hit Rosa like a slap. Fugitive. Noah grabbed her coat sleeve tightly. "Sheriff," Jay said, voice low but steady. "You're pushing decent folks toward a noose because one rich man tells you to." Doyle's face reddened. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Jay finally got off his horse. He set Noah down gently, then placed himself between Rosa and the crowd. "You want to talk? Fine. Let's talk where everyone can hear." He walked up the steps of the bank, the same bank that had signed death warrants in the form of loans and land deeds. He turned to face the crowd. "All of you know me," he said, voice rising. "You know I don't lie, and I don't ask for pity." The crowd shifted uneasily. Even the men who hated him quieted. Jay Carter had weight when he spoke, no matter what color his skin was to them. Rosa swallowed hard. This was happening. No turning back. Jay took a breath that cracked in the middle. You all heard rumors about the Delgado fire years back. Well, I ain't running from it no more." The crowd leaned in. Rosa's heart slammed into her ribs. Jay steadied himself on the railing. "I was there," he said. The world held its breath. Gasps. A few curses. A woman covered her mouth. Jay kept going, voice raw. "Kane paid a patrol to scare the Delgados. Told us nobody'd get hurt. When the fire started, it was bigger than any of us expected. People were screaming, begging, fighting for their kids." His voice cracked. Rosa closed her eyes, letting the truth stab her all over again. "And Jay swallowed hard. "I ran. I grabbed Noah, just a baby, and I ran." A man shouted, "You left him to die?" Jay flinched. "Yes." Rosa's breath trembled, but she didn't move. Jay lifted his head. But Kane didn't want a scare. He wanted that land. He wanted the rights the Delgados held. And he wanted every witness gone. That stirred real fear through the crowd. Jay reached back without looking. "Rosa." Her legs shook as she stepped forward. Noah held her hand tight. She opened the pocket watch, thumb pressing a hidden latch Jay had never seen her touch before. A thin slip of folded paper slid into her palm. Her voice trembled, but didn't break. "This is the Delgado deed. The real one." Gasps. More shouting. Someone cursed Kane's name outright. Rosa lifted it high. "Kane has been burning people out of their homes for years. My parents died for this paper, and now he wants me dead for it too." Doyle stiffened. "That deed proves nothing." "Shut up, Doyle," someone yelled from the crowd. "We know you're on Kane's payroll." More voices rose. Angry ones, fearful ones, the kind that could turn a mob either way. Jay stepped down, taking his place at Rosa's side, not hiding his shame, not hiding his resolve. "This ain't just about her," he said, "or me, or Highwind. Kane's been starving this town, owning you through debt, burning whoever he pleases. How long before it's your ranch? Your kids?" People exchanged looks, terrified looks. Then, from the back of the crowd, someone shouted, "Where is Kane now?" Doyle froze. And right then, Rosa realized something. Kane wasn't in sight. Not on the balcony. Not at the bank door. Not anywhere. A cold chill slid down her spine. Jay must have realized the same thing. "Stay close," he murmured. But it was too late. A figure detached from the alley behind the crowd. Luther Briggs, rifle in hand, face twisted with bruised rage. The townsfolk scattered as he cocked the weapon. "Carter!" Luther roared. "You should have stayed quiet." Rosa shoved Noah behind her. Jay reached for his gun. Doyle shouted, "Briggs, don't!" And then a shotgun blast echoed down the street. Not from Luther, from the balcony above. Rosa looked up, and her blood ran cold. Bartholomew Kane stood there, shotgun smoking, eyes cold as winter. "I think," he said calmly, "this little show has gone on long enough." The square exploded into screams as Kane's shotgun blast shattered the air. People dove for cover. Dust spiked up from the street. Jay grabbed Noah first, yanking the boy behind the trough. Rosa dropped low beside them, pulse hammering so hard she felt it in her teeth. Kane stood above them on the bank balcony, like a man surveying cattle he meant to brand. Calm, precise, absolute in his power. "Sheriff," he said lazily, "I believe it's time to restore order." But Doyle didn't move. He wasn't looking at Kane. He was looking behind Rosa, looking terrified. Rosa spun. Luther Briggs stood there, filthy, bruised, bleeding from a cut over his brow. And he had Noah. A rope looped around the boy's neck like a leash. Luther's arm clamped so tight across Noah's chest the child could barely breathe. Rosa's body went cold. Jay's went rigid. "Let him go," Jay growled, stepping forward. Luther tightened the rope. Noah whimpered. "Ah," Luther sneered. "Take one more step, and I'll snap this brat's neck like a chicken bone." Kane smirked. "Briggs, nice of you to join us." Luther spat blood. "You think you can just toss me aside? I ain't your dog. I ain't taking orders from nobody, no more." Kane sighed, annoyed. "Then kill the boy and be done with it." Rosa's stomach lurched. Jay looked like someone had cut the ground out from under him. "Noah, kid, breathe. I'm right here." Luther dragged Noah backward down the alley. "Carter, you want the boy? Bring me the deed. Bring me the girl. Both of them. Or he dies." Rosa's pulse roared in her ears. She could barely breathe. Jay, we have to go." "We will," Jay rasped, eyes locked on his nephew. "But not without him." Shots cracked behind them as Kane fired again, scattering townsfolk. The square was falling apart. Panic, shouting, boots thundering. Kane had planned it perfectly. Chaos for cover, fear for fuel. Luther pulled Noah toward the edge of town. "Come alone," he shouted. "You show up with anyone else, I kill him slow." Rosa didn't think. She ran. Jay cursed and sprinted after her. They bolted through the back alleys, dodging between sheds, cutting across a yard behind the smithy. Kane's men shouted in the streets, but Luther was headed in one direction only. The old logging camp, abandoned months ago. Broken beams, half-burned sheds, forest shadows deep as pitch, a place where screams wouldn't echo back to town. By the time Jay and Rosa reached the clearing, dusk had fallen hard, bleeding purple across the sky. Wind hissed through the blackened timbers. Embers still clung to the ruins from Luther's last attack on Highwind, making the place reek of old fire and new danger. "Noah!" Jay's voice cut through the trees. A whimper answered him. Luther stepped into view near the collapsed lumber shed, gun pressed to Noah's head, rope still around the boy's neck. "You're late. Carter." Jay raised his hands, palms open. "You want me? I'm right here." "No," Luther snarled. "I want her." His eyes slid to Rosa. "Little wildfire who won't die." Rosa felt her heart squeeze, but not with fear, with anger, with defiance. with something burning hotter than any flame Luther had ever lit. "You don't get to touch him," she said, stepping forward before Jay could stop her. Luther laughed. "Look at that. The girl's got claws." He shoved Noah to his knees, the boy choking on the rope. Jay lunged, but Luther cocked his pistol and aimed it right between Jay's eyes. "Move again," Luther hissed, "and the kid dies first." Jay froze. Every heartbeat was a hammer. Then, another voice stepped out of the shadows. "Well now," Cain drawled, emerging from behind a splintered beam. "This is quite the gathering." Rosa's blood froze. "You followed us." "Of course I did," Cain said, annoyed by the obvious. "Briggs, hand me the deed, kill the witnesses, and let's clean this place up." Luther turned on him, furious. "You're not in charge here." Cain sighed. "You simple creature. I've always been in charge." Noah whimpered again. Rosa's breath tightened. Jay's shoulders trembled with fury he could barely contain. Cain raised his shotgun. "Briggs, step aside. I'll take care of the loose ends myself." Noah sobbed. "Jay, help!" Something inside Rosa snapped. It wasn't fear, wasn't dread. It was the same fire that had carried her through years of running. She reached into her coat, fingers closing around the small pistol Jay had given her days ago just in case. And she stepped into the open. "Get away from him," she said, voice steady as a church bell. Jay's head whipped toward her. "Rosa, don't—" Cain laughed. "How touching. The orphan wants to die heroically." Noah struggled, breathing hard. Rosa took another step. Her hand didn't shake, but Luther's did. "Hey!" Jay shouted suddenly, desperate. "Noah!" The boy jerked his head up, eyes wild, just long enough to scream, "He's my family!" It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't fear. It was a declaration. A truth Noah believed so hard it broke the air open. Jay's breath hitched. Rosa's throat closed. Luther's grip faltered. Cain swung his shotgun toward the child. Rosa fired. Her bullet tore through Luther's hand. He screamed, dropping his gun. Jay launched forward, grabbing Noah and shoving him behind the trough ruins. Cain fired, missing by inches as Jay tackled Rosa out of the line of fire. Then shadows moved. Men from the town, strong hands grabbing Cain's arms, yelling, cursing. The people of Dusty Ford, finally too tired of choking on fear. Cain fought like a cornered wolf, but he was outnumbered. His shotgun clattered to the ground. Doyle, ashen-faced and shaking, stepped forward and snapped cuffs around Cain's wrists. "Bartholomew Cain," the sheriff rasped, voice cracking. "You're under arrest." Jay clutched Noah tight against his chest. Rosa's pistol fell from her shaking hand. No one spoke for a long moment. And then Noah sobbed, reaching for them both. They moved at the same time, Jay pulling Rosa close with one arm, Rosa wrapping Noah between them. 3 battered hearts, 1 fragile circle, a moment sealed by firelight and trembling breaths. They weren't healed, but they were together. Morning settled over Dusty Ford, soft and strange, like the town wasn't sure yet if it had survived the night. Rosa stood outside the sheriff's office, coat pulled tight, ribs aching, heart still rattling from gunfire and firelight. Cain was locked up. Noah lived. Jay lived. Somehow, that alone felt unreal. The territorial marshal stepped out with a folder in hand. "Miss Delgado," he said, "your family's deed is legitimate. The forest and mining rights belong to you now." Rosa managed a quiet nod. She'd dreamed of this moment her entire childhood, proof that her parents hadn't died for nothing. But she'd imagined joy, imagined arms around her, imagined a home still standing. Instead, the truth hurt like a wound pressed too hard. "Still," she whispered, "thank you." A rattle of wheels drew her attention. Cain, shackled in the jail wagon, glared out through the bars. "You think this ends with paper?" he spat. "I built this town. I own its bones." Jay stepped into view, blocking Rosa from Cain's line of sight. "Not anymore." The wagon rolled out. Dust swallowed it. And just like that, the man who'd haunted their lives was gone. Noah rushed over, clutching Rosa's sleeve. "We can go home now, right? Back to Highwind?" She smoothed his hair. "Yes, Noah. Home." Jay approached slower, hat in hand, eyes heavy with the weight of everything he'd confessed. He looked like a man ready to hear a verdict. "Rosa," he began, voice low, "you've got land now, real land, wealth if you want it. If you aim to leave this place, I'll help you pack. I'll get you a strong horse. You won't hear a word of protest from me." Noah stiffened, fear flooding his eyes. Rosa held Jay's gaze. This man had broken her heart in one truth, and tried to mend it in every action since. The memory of him standing in the fire for Noah flickered behind her ribs, raw, impossible to ignore. "I'm angry at you," she said plainly. Jay nodded. "You should be." "But—" She stepped closer. "I'm tired of running. And last night, you didn't run either. You faced Cain when every instinct in you must have told you to escape. You protected Noah. You protected me. You told the truth in front of everyone." Jay's breath caught. His shoulders trembled, just barely. "For the first time since the fire," Rosa whispered, "I felt like someone worth standing with. Not a curse. Not a burden." Jay swallowed hard. "Rosa, are you saying—" "I'm saying I'll stay," she said, "because I choose to." Noah let out a whoop loud enough to echo off the storefronts. Jay bowed his head, emotion tightening his voice. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice." Rosa's chest warmed painfully. Healing never came easy, never came clean. But here, now, she could feel the first threads of it sewing themselves across old wounds. She took Noah's hand, looked at Jay, and breathed. "Let's go home." Side by side, the three of them started down the road to Highwind Ranch, toward a place broken, battered, but theirs to rebuild. Spring came slow to Highwind, but it came, melting the last scraps of snow, softening the ground, letting green poke through the scars of winter. Rosa stood beside the rebuilt fence line, breathing in the scent of pine sap and fresh-cut lumber. The ranch still carried burn marks, but life threaded through them now. Jay hammered the final post into place, muscles flexing as he drove it deep. Noah hovered nearby, holding a bundle of mismatched metal pieces, old horseshoes, bits of burnt tin, a shard of glass he'd polished smooth. "Okay," Noah said proudly. "Now she goes up." Rosa knelt beside him. "You sure it'll work?" "It'll sound real pretty," Noah insisted. "Jay helped me tie the knots. You gotta trust his knots." Jay huffed. "My knots hold better than my luck anyway." Rosa smiled at that. Small but real. She helped Noah lift the wind chime they'd made together. Strings of scrap gleaming in the sun. They hung it on the new porch beam Jay had cut from the section of forest Rosa legally owned now. Forest saved from Cain's greed. When the breeze came, the chime sang, soft, uneven, imperfect, beautiful. Noah beamed. "That means we're staying. Wind chimes keep folks anchored. Aunt Liddy used to say that." Rosa's breath trembled. Anchored. A word she never thought would apply to her again. Jay stepped beside her, wiping sawdust from his hands. "You okay?" She nodded. I think I am." He didn't touch her, just stood close enough she felt the warmth of him. "High wind's still rough around the edges," he murmured. "But it's yours as much as mine. More if you want it." Rosa looked at Noah chasing a calf across the yard, laughing like children should. She looked at the hills, the rebuilt barn, the smoke curling gently from the winter kitchen. Then she looked at Jay. "I want it," she said. "I want this." Jay's eyes softened in that quiet way of his, the way that made her feel seen without being trapped. "Then we build it together." The wind chime rang again, bright, hopeful, the sound of a home choosing them back. Here's a warm, gentle 100-word conclusion tailored to an audience 65 plus. As the wind chime sings over Highwind Ranch, Rosa, Jay, and little Noah remind us that even after the saison, hardest winters, hope can still take root. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your wisdom and life experiences mean more than you know. Please leave a comment below, and if you'd like more Western love and healing tales, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories keep riding on. Thank you for spending this time with me, and may your days be filled with peace, warmth, and good company.